All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a guest that I've wanted on for a long time. One of my all-time favorite football players. We got Joel Stave, Wisconsin's all-time winningest quarterback, second in career passing yards, touchdown passes as well. Spent time in the NFL from 2016 to 2018, and now is an engineer. But Joel, I'll let you give the viewers an update on your life. What's it looking like these days?
Life is good. Married, 3 kids. Working as an engineer for a large construction management company in the Appleton area. So, my wife is from the Appleton area. I knew when we were getting married that this was going to kind of be the place that we were going to settle down. So, having lived here now for 7 years or so, I really like it. And yeah, life is good.
Let's go. And like I just said off camera like a minute ago, but that's the American dream, man. You played college football at a super high level, played in the NFL, and now you got out of there without too much damage. You know, you're living a normal family life, which is really, really cool. But yeah, I want to go through your journey a little bit. I find your journey super interesting. But coming out of high school with your 6'5" and in your career at Wisconsin, there's plays where you threw 50, 60-yard passes right on the dot. So my question is for you, how are you a walk-on at 6'5" with your arm strength? Like, did you have a lot of offers elsewhere? But yeah, why were you a walk-on?
The recruiting journey was not a super fun journey for me. I think a big reason was I didn't start at my high school until my junior year. So as a freshman, I played on the freshman team. As a sophomore, I played on JV. I had some knee injuries my freshman and sophomore year, so I didn't finish either of those seasons. And was honestly debating maybe not playing football because I kept hurting my knees and it was kind of screwing up basketball for me. But I love playing football. I love playing the quarterback position. So I went to some camps and stuff like that to try and get some exposure. But when you're not playing varsity until you're a junior, and with the way that recruiting was, a lot of kids were already, at least at the big schools, you were getting offers from they were getting offers out to kids as sophomores and even sooner. So I just kind of got lost in the shuffle. I had a lot of interest. Like after my junior year, I played really well in high school, and I had almost half of the Big Ten come to my high school and sit down with me in the coach's locker room, and kind of talk about what life would look like if I were to go to their school, but just never really got any offers out of it. So I got a walk-on offer to Wisconsin, kind of midway through my senior season of football, and then late in the process, in December of my senior year, I got a scholarship offer to Western Michigan. I knew I wanted to enroll early, so I had to kind of make a decision in a few days and graduate high school and, kind of get my stuff packed up and ready to go to college. So I couldn't pass up the opportunity to play at Wisconsin, to be a Badger. That was a year that they were coming off a Big Ten championship, a really close loss in the Rose Bowl to TCU. That was Scott Tolzien's senior year. I really liked the staff. I liked Coach Christ, and the program was in really, really good shape at that time. And it was a great opportunity for me. So, kind of a roundabout way of getting there. And the recruiting process wasn't always fun because I had a lot of interest and no offers. And I kind of kept waiting for that offer to come and never did. But at the end of the day, it all worked out well.
Were you a bit of a late bloomer, not starting until you were a junior, or was it more because of the knee injuries?
Um, I think part of it was when I was a freshman, we had I wasn't ready to play on varsity as a freshman, and we had a junior who was a pretty good quarterback. He's a good athlete. He could throw it pretty well, but he was a leader and he was the quarterback. And so as a sophomore, I think I would have been more than capable of being the varsity starter, but he was a senior. He was an all-conference player the year before. There's no reason he shouldn't have continued to stay in that role. So, um, I think I definitely could have, competed on varsity as a sophomore, but and I was the backup. He never got hurt. There was no reason for me to ever go in, and then I got hurt, 4 weeks into the JV season. So, um, I wouldn't say I was necessarily a late bloomer. It just timing it didn't make sense at my high school.
Okay. And yeah, actually, now that I think it through, I did my research. I know that you played varsity as a freshman in basketball. That's
Hmm.
correct, right? Yeah. So
Yep.
that tells me you weren't really that late of a bloomer.
Mhm.
But yeah, so you played some high school basketball. I believe until your junior year, didn't play your senior year. I'm a basketball guy. That's my main sport. Don't talk a whole lot of football, but like
Mhm.
situations like this, I will. But you're 6'5", and at the NFL Combine, you had a pretty good vertical jump. 33 inches at like 6'5", 240 pounds. That's pretty good. And I believe you have rather long arms. I couldn't figure it out. I was working with ChatGPT to figure it out. But my question, I'll get to my question. Could you throw down some pretty good dunks back in the day?
I could. I think I was a better athlete than I ever got credit for in college. Um, Part of it is as a runner, I don't start fast, and that's really important in football. Is not necessarily your top end speed, but how quick you go from zero to your top end speed. And I didn't get there all that quickly, so um, my athleticism never really had the opportunity to shine through in, in college football. But yeah, in high school, I could dunk pretty good. I loved playing basketball. Also, it was right up there with football. I had so much fun playing. My freshman and sophomore year, my brother was 2 grades older than me. So I got to play with him for 2 years. He was an excellent player too, an all-state player his senior year. Um, and it was really fun playing with him, playing on a really good competitive team at Whitnall. Um, and then, unfortunately, my junior year, I played one game and kind of had my knee injuries rear their ugly head again, and had an injury the next day in practice and sat out the rest of that season. And then, honestly, senior year, my decision was: do I leave and go to college, or do I stay and play basketball? I knew I couldn't start the season in November and then bail on everybody in December. So I kind of had
Sure.
to make that decision in November if I was going to leave or not. And I decided I'm going to try and leave and go to college. And I didn't know where I was going to go to college yet, but um, so that was a really tough decision for me. But yeah, I loved high school basketball. The conference that we played in was really competitive. We had a lot of good teams. We had a really good team. The environment was like high school basketball is just fun. The gyms and the band, and there's something special about it.
Yeah. So what were those dunks looking like? What's your best dunk you could pull off?
Um, so my real claim to fame dunk, it was in summer league going into my sophomore year. And I don't know if you remember the name Flavian Davis. He was a Wisconsin Lutheran kid. He was 2 years older than me. I can't remember where he went, but he was a D1 guy. He was a really good player. And I uh, I just kind of went down the middle of the lane, and I was just planning on laying it in, and I jumped and just kind of kept going up and hammered one down. And so that was my coolest in-game dunk that I ever had. But
I'm the guy. I'm Davis.
yeah, right on him.
Yeah.
So
You're a humble
I'm,
guy. You're a humble guy.
I
I had to
I may
clarify.
be remembering it differently, but if you ask the guys on my team, that's what they'll tell you.
Right. So the last question on this one. Open gym. What's your go to dunk?
So I was always a 1 foot jumper. I used to like to surprise people with the drive. I'd be on the right wing or right baseline and drive baseline with my right hand and kind of come up from the other side of the hoop.
Reverse.
Yeah. So kind of a
Respect.
reverse, but yeah, being a 1 foot jumper, that was one that I could usually make pretty consistently and could um, kind of surprise people with.
And then these days, do you play basketball at all? What do you do to keep yourself in shape and scratch that competitive itch?
I don't. I'll play volleyball every now and again. Um, I it's mostly volleyball and golf now.
Okay.
So golf is a great way to stay competitive, just kind of with myself. The issue with basketball for me is I work out and I'll ride my bike and I exercise in the basement and stuff like that. Um, but to be in basketball shape, you just have to play a lot of basketball. And I played in a league a couple of years after I moved up here, And I found myself like, I couldn't even really play the game because I was deciding, do I go for this rebound or do I just get back on defense because I have no wind left? Um, and when you're playing the game, trying to decide on what you can do based off of your conditioning, I thought, yeah, maybe it's time to move on from basketball. So I'm sure I'll get
That's
back
fair.
into it when my kids get a little older, but for right now, I don't do a whole lot.
All right, that's fair. So yeah, moving on to your football career and your journey a little bit more. Unlike Cardell Jones, you played school. You went to school for civil engineering. What was that like balancing the starting job at a Power Four conference or Power Five conference, whatever it was back then, and also having a real like difficult degree in engineering?
It was a lot. It Some of the things that really helped me was one, the fact that the engineering school was right next to Camp Randall. Um, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but the fact that I didn't have to traverse the large UW-Madison campus on a daily basis was huge for me because I did not have a lot of free time in the day. So we'd work out in the morning. You'd have class. Your window to schedule classes was kind of between like 8 and 2:30, and then practice in the afternoons. And you're eating dinner and watching film, and I wouldn't get home until relatively late every night, especially in season. So. Um, it was a balancing act of putting as much time as I could into my classes and into my studies, to be able to keep my head above water, but also understanding that I'm not taking exams in front of 80,000 people on Saturdays. So priority number one was always football, but I'd say it was kind of a 1A 1B thing. I put a lot of time and effort into both of them. And I had a lot of good people around me. A kid who I actually went to high school with, who was a couple years older than me, was a civil engineering student. Um, and he's the smartest person I know. Like, just things came to him really quickly. So I knew if I had a question, he had taken the classes that I was a couple years behind him. So he had taken a lot of those classes. And I really leaned on him to help me understand topics um, that were tricky because I didn't have the time to kind of sit and bang my head against the wall trying to figure it out on my own. I had to use the resources around me. Um, and he was a big resource. And then just getting to know the guys in my classes and, making friends and understanding who you can work with and who you can bounce things off of to make sure that you're staying efficient with your school work as opposed to trying to figure everything out on your own.
And how did balancing both the stresses of being the starting quarterback and studying engineering prepare you for the real world that you're in right now?
Um, it prepared me a lot. I think one of the really nice things about it was they were so different that just the stresses of playing football and playing quarterback and the ups and downs, kind of the emotional roller coaster that it was at times, it could be a lot. And so it was nice that my schoolwork was challenging enough that I really had to focus all my time and energy on it while I was working on it, and it would be able to get me away from football and kind of get my mind on something else. um, so that I felt was a real benefit for me, in my time in school. But then also just I guess moving forward into a professional career, understanding that things are not always going to come easily right away, and everything that's worth doing takes time and effort. So when I started my job, in my professional career, I didn't really have much of an idea of what I was doing, but from how I learned to prepare and how I learned to study and how I learned to push myself through understanding new topics and things like that, I was able to pick it up relatively quickly, and I attribute a lot of that to just pushing myself through challenges in my years in college, both athletically and academically.
Okay. And so you arrive onto campus in 2011, and Russell Wilson transfers in. There's a lot of talent on that team. Did you believe in your heart of hearts that you would eventually start at Wisconsin when you were an 18-year-old freshman?
I did. And the reason was, I think, because I enrolled early. that was um, that was huge for me because that spring we had four quarterbacks on the roster. One of them being Kurt Phillips, who had recently undergone a ACL surgery. So we had John Budmeyer, who was a sophomore, a redshirt sophomore, and then Joe Brennan, who was a redshirt freshman. And then I was, you know, a year behind Joe Brennan. So it was just the three of us in that first spring ball, and I was able to get a lot of reps. Um, mostly with the second and third teams and stuff like that. But I was able to get the opportunity to go out and practice with the guys, understand the playbook, and have some successes. And just having that opportunity in the spring was huge for me, huge for my confidence in knowing that I can play at this level, I can compete at this level. Because frankly, once Russell Wilson transferred in, he and John Budmeyer competed for the starting job, but John had some health issues throughout camp with his elbow and was having a hard time throwing the ball. And Russell was an outstanding player. Like he came in and immediately separated himself. And obviously, what he did on the field that year showed the type of player that he was. So I didn't really get much of an opportunity in fall camp to do much. And then obviously during the season, it's all focused on the starting team and getting them ready to play. So had I not have been there that first spring, I felt like I would have been really behind the eight ball. But because I was, and I had the opportunity to practice and compete, and do some good things, I think I was able to build my own confidence, but also have the coaching staff, build a little bit of confidence in me and know that, I have an opportunity to, potentially be the guy here.
So your freshman year, when your redshirt freshman year, when you get the starting job, you took over. Was it Utah State or was it the game after that?
It was,
Oh,
yeah, Utah State. I came
Utah
in
State.
at,
It had a few handoffs.
Mhm.
But the team responded though. I remember the team
Yeah.
responded. But you came in had a 5-1 record as the starter before you got hurt against Michigan State. You came and just hearing those names, you came back in the Rose Bowl for one play after your injury, and you threw a beautiful pass that was dropped. It was like 50 yards right on the dot. The offense was struggling. They were really creative to get the offense rolling against Nebraska in the Big Ten championship, and before that, the offense was really, really struggling when you got out. Were you like, why didn't you keep me in? I just threw a beautiful 50-yard pass, and we don't really have anything going for us right now.
In the Rose Bowl game, I would have
Yeah,
liked to get a few more series.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
agree.
I certainly can't. Obviously, that throw was to Jared Abbrederis. He made tons and tons of plays for me in my years of playing with him. So certainly can't knock him there. I mean,
No,
knock him in the long run, but I can knock him on that one. That was an excellent throw, and I'd love to
yeah, it
see him come
was. It was
back.
beautiful. I'll put an overlay over this video. It was a great. You were in for one play. It was like 50 yards. You dropped it right over the defender into the end zone.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
I got two plays. I came in. I gave Melvin Gordon a jet sweep, and he
okay.
picked up 4 yards than he was supposed to. So we got a little bit tighter. We were probably on the. It was going to be kind of an out and up and really chuck it. But we got down to, I think, probably just inside the 40, and we didn't have quite as much room, but we called it anyways. And it turned around and he was relatively open and just ripped it. And unfortunately, didn't come down with it. But yeah, definitely one of my better throws in my life, probably.
And so, but yeah, Abbrederis, that connection you had with Abbrederis, one of my all-time favorite to watch. But your sophomore year, you had a quality offensive line. You had Abbrederis. You had great running backs. Threw 22 touchdowns, which is the second most in program history at the time. It's third now. But yeah, just talk about that Stave to Abbrederis connection a little bit.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. It was pretty special. He was the kind of guy who, um I feel like teams would see him and they'd think, "Oh, well, he's just this skinny little white guy. Like we don't need to double team him. I can, they put their best corner on him, and every game he'd beat people. He ran outstanding routes. He had a great feel for just space. Great feel for the offense. But he also knew defenses, and he knew based off the coverage where the windows were going to be, and he'd find the windows. Um, and then a lot of the deep balls were really set up from the fact that we had probably one of the best backfields in college football history. When you look at the three guys, Melvin
Yeah.
Gordon, James White, and Monty Ball, and when you can fake a jet sweep to one, fake a handoff to the other, and fake an end around to the third, and we got all three guys in the field at the same time, and then you turn around and just chuck it as far as you can and share it down the field. We had a few of those plays too. So, um, but he was fun to play with. He was, our go-to guy on third down. He was always had a knack to be able to get past the defense. He'd be able to set up the safeties really well and just find the openings. So um, he was a fun guy to throw to.
Yeah, I think out in my lifetime, in my opinion, he's the best receiver Wisconsin's had. I mean, Lee Evans is the other one. You just look at
Mhm.
college productivity, but if Abbrederis was just a little thicker, it could have been just a little bit more durable. I'm convinced he would have been a really good NFL player. Unfortunately, he wasn't the most durable guy, but boy, he was talented. He was fast. Like he
He
was
was.
legitimately super fast, amazing route runner. I wish he didn't tear his ACL his rookie year. Wish he didn't get those concussions. But yeah, he was a dog. If those things don't happen, I'm convinced Abbrederis has a really good NFL career. But yeah, let's go right after your sophomore year when you had a great season, throwing to Abbrederis, building off a really good freshman season when you were healthy. Um, Heading into your junior year, your redshirt junior year, it was obvious, according to your teammates, that you were the best quarterback in camp. Things were set up for you to really build off of your sophomore year, but Gary Anderson wanted more of a dual threat quarterback, chose to go with Tanner McAvoy that season. And I just want to get your perspective on overcoming, you had the yips your junior year. Just talk about that experience, overcoming it, and what that taught you in the big picture.
Yeah, it was a challenge. It was frustrating for me that training camp because it it felt like it felt like as a team we were being unproductive. Like it, it, I mean I
You let it
agree.
fly. It's 11 years. It's 11 years now.
I agree with my teammates in that it felt like I was certainly the best quarterback on the team. I felt like they knew I was the guy. So to open up the quarterback competition again was like, what are we doing? Why are we even doing this? We should be focusing on LSU, and we should be focusing on the season and not battling out at the quarterback position, especially with a guy like Tanner, who I like Tanner, and he was a good athlete, and he could play a lot of different positions. Just quarterback probably wasn't the right fit for him, especially in our offense. So why are we trying to force this when we've got me, a guy who's played,
Yeah, a lot of
two
experience at that
seasons,
point.
a lot of experience, had a lot of success, and then we could put Tanner at wide receiver, we could put him at safety, and have another guy who could be a real impact player for us. So that in itself was frustrating for me. Um, and then yeah, when I found out that I wasn't going to be the quarterback, I certainly went into a little bit of a little bit of a funk, um, and that was a challenge for me to get out of. I think the big thing that I did, I leaned on my faith, my family, kind of tried to get back to just try to keep things in perspective and understand that like it's gonna pass, and even if it doesn't, I had a good run, and it was kind of is what it is. But the big thing for me was I didn't want to let that situation kind of win. Um, so I know, mental issues come in all different shapes and sizes. And for some people, when you're going through a mental challenge, the best thing you can do is remove yourself from the situation. But for me, it felt like the opposite. It felt like the best thing I could do was go through it and understand that, the path of least resistance was not the right path for me. Because I was coming off a shoulder injury in the season before. I could have easily kind of chalked it
South
up to,
Carolina game.
yep.
Okay.
And I could have easily chalked it up to a shoulder injury and kind of call it a career. Um, but that just that didn't feel right to me. And I didn't want it to end like that. So, it was challenging. It was frankly embarrassing in practice a lot of times, where it's like things that were, once so easy all of a sudden seem so difficult. But, um, if there's one thing that I'm most proud of in my career, it's the fact that I went through that and came out on the other side. And even like back to the schoolwork stuff, like one of the things that really helped me through that was my schoolwork. Just knowing that, okay, like practice is done. I got to go and focus on school now. And I can't sit and dwell on this. Like there's, I got, I got an exam in 2 days. And like, if I
Yeah.
don't, so that kind of helped me keep some balance, helped me keep some perspective. Um, and then just trusting that it would pass.
Yeah. But at that time, and for a little context for people, like this just had to feel like the weight of the world. I mean, you're 22 years old. There's 80,000 people who show up at the stadium. There's articles being written about this. Like that wasn't anything light. Like that was heavy stuff. And like you said, that is a great thing that you stuck with it and you overcame it and you had a lot of success in the future. But yeah, that was a lot. And one other thing, you got a lot of interesting things about you. Engineer, starting quarterback. You're also very like into music, correct? I thought I read somewhere that you kind of leaned into music a little bit.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one too. So I grew up playing the piano. I was really fortunate to have an awesome music teacher who lived right across the street. He was a music teacher at the local high school. Um, but I took lessons from him from the time I was 6 until probably about the time I was 16. Um, so the piano was something that was always just um, something I really enjoyed to do. It was really relaxing and could just kind of take my mind off things. So in the humanities building on campus in Madison, I would just ride my bike over there and walk around in the basement until I found an open practice room, and I'd sit in there for an hour and just kind of play songs and unwind. And so that was another thing that I would do. I found myself in the practice rooms a little more um, in the beginning of my junior year than any other time in college, but it was a good place for me, and it was just a place I could be kind of quiet and by myself and do something I love to do, and um, just kind of take my mind off of things.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that is interesting, and to me, it's obvious that you had a lot going for you in your life, and even when you were in college, you came off as someone who was very grounded and very humble. Can you just talk about that humility and where that comes from?
Yeah, I think a lot of it just comes from, my parents and the way that I was raised. And again, it goes back to my faith and understanding that um, there's a lot more important things out there than me. And the more you focus on yourself and the more your life is centered around you, I feel like the more miserable you can become. So I tried to, keep the perspective on, things outside of me. Um, and understand that for especially a game like football, it's so much about the team. um, and I was really fortunate to play with a lot of really good players. I played with some of the best running backs in the country. um, my junior year, Melvin Gordon was incredible, and the fact that I got to spend a year handing him the ball and just watching him go to work was fun. Some of the offensive lines and guys who I played with who are still playing in the NFL today, like guys who are just incredible players. And um, so there's no one quarterback, one football player who does it alone. And in my case, we were obviously a run heavy offense. We had a lot of really good players, really good defense. So it felt like for me to kind of look at myself and beat my own chest about like, look at what's going on here. Like so much of the credit would have to go to everybody else on the team, and they all would have deflected the credit too. So we had that kind of group of guys. That was the kind of culture we had in the locker room. And I think that's why we were successful.
So going back on the quarterback decision that Gary Anderson made, let's say that he just chose you as the quarterback. Things probably would have looked a lot different for you, right? You wouldn't have gone through that adversity, that bump in the road. Did you ever play the what if game on, hey, what if I was able to build off of my really good sophomore year a bit more seamlessly?
I have. I don't love playing that game because it kind of brings back some of the frustrations. But I think from a team standpoint, um, we went 10-2 in the regular season, with our two losses being one to LSU, which I mean they were a good team, but we played them really close. And um, do I think we could have won that game? Absolutely. So. Um, And then the other loss was at Northwestern in a game where I took over at halftime and kind of played a little shaky, but was quite frankly proud of myself for getting out there, because I don't
Yeah.
know if I was totally over my head issues, but I figured, whatever, go give it a go and see what happens. So um, those two games were super winnable games, and we would have been going into a Big Ten championship at 12-0. That being said, we ran into an absolute buzzsaw of an Ohio State team that would have probably beat us anyways. Were they 59 to nothing better than us? No, but they were probably 35 to 17 better than us. So like they were an incredible team. They had first round talent all over the field. But then we're 12-1 and we're in a major bowl game, and that season could have looked a whole lot different. So um yeah, I do sometimes, when I'm sitting around with my buddies from college, we talk about some of the what ifs, but we also talk about just the games that we did get to play in, and like
Yeah.
the Auburn game that we ended that season with, and being able to send out the seniors and Melvin and that whole group with a win. And um, there was a lot of really special things from that season also.
Yeah. So then moving into your senior year, junior year, I thought, as freshman, sophomore, and junior year, I thought you had some really good situations potentially to have great seasons, and you did. Especially freshman, sophomore year, and junior year, you overcame the adversity. But heading to your senior year, in my opinion, I'll just say my opinion, I did not think you had the best situation, right? I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember in the Holiday Bowl, this was the first time ever in program history, there were 5 freshmen starting on the offensive line. You went deep into the depth chart for running backs that season, guys who put up their career highs as like freshmen. And then the wide receivers were fine, in my opinion. I'm not here to have you to say anything on that. But despite all of those things, your senior year, you threw for the 5th most passing yards in program history. You threw more yards your senior year than you did your sophomore year. Missed the majority of the Illinois game. If you play that, you're probably at least 3rd in single season passing yards, possibly 2nd, depending on the game you would have had. And then I just think that touchdown total is a bit deceiving. You threw for a lot of yards. You moved the ball down the field in not the best of situations. And you guys got the ball to the 1 or 2 quite a bit. And you guys ran it in a lot. So I think the touchdown numbers were a bit just deceiving. I think the stats do lie in that situation. And you also had passing touchdowns that were overturned. You had 2 against Northwestern that were both overturned. So, yeah, I think your senior year was extremely underrated. I thought you played really, really well, especially for the situation that you were in. Do you think your senior year performance was underrated?
Um, I don't know exactly how it would be rated. I agree that the numbers from a touchdown standpoint don't look good. And you're right. We had Alec Ingold, who was a freshman, and he was just a little touchdown hawk. So we'd get down to the 1 and we'd give Alec the ball. And I don't know what the numbers are from that season, but he probably had 15 carries for 8 touchdowns. Like he didn't get the ball much, but when he did, it was inside the 5, and he found the end zone. So I was happy to score. I was happy to do things that worked, but it was definitely a unique season, in that we just didn't have that offensive line that we had had the years prior. So we had Tyler Merritt's at left tackle, who was a senior and had kind of been a staple there. And then Dan Volz had dealt with a number of ankle injuries and stuff like that, but he was kind of in and out that year. And then we had a lot of freshmen playing.
Yeah.
And I remember the first game of the year against Alabama, knowing like this is a really, really good team, and we got a number of kids who are making their first start on the offensive line. Like this is a little, honestly, a little scary for me, not knowing exactly how that was going to go. But that, and on the other hand, like we had some really good running backs in the years prior. And this year, the guy was supposed to be Corey Clement, and he had a groin injury that kept him out the whole season. And Daria Gumbawale stepped in and played really well. But we just didn't have that depth, and we didn't have the unbelievable game-changing running back that I had gotten used to over the last few years. So we were forced to just throw the ball a lot more. I know one stat that I heard, which I was kind of always proud of, is against Nebraska, I was the only quarterback to ever attempt in Wisconsin history to attempt 50 passes or more and win.
Yeah.
Because typically at Wisconsin, if you're throwing the ball 50 times, the game isn't going real well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, we had to move the ball in different ways. We did gain a lot of yards just throwing the ball. Alex Erickson was a great option for us at the wide receiver position. Um, but yeah, it was a little bit more of um,
Challenge.
a challenge just for us on offense than it had been the previous years. And it was a new system. So, Coach Chris came in that
Yeah.
year, and, it's not just the quarterback who's got to learn the playbook. It's everybody who's got to, learn a new playbook. And there's challenges that come along with that too. So all in all, I was super proud of the way that we were able to perform offensively. And we had a great defense. We had TJ Watt, we had Joe Schobert, we had Mike Caputo. We had some real, game changing guys on the defensive side of the ball, um, who were able to keep us in some games, and ones that maybe we didn't move the ball as well on offense. But yeah, that was a season that, for all the challenges and all of the new guys on the offense, we ended up winning a lot of games, and played in a lot of really fun competitive games, and that's what it's all about. Like, it's nice to have Western Illinois at home and beat them by 50, but it's fun to play the four-quarter games against conference opponents and really have them be, taking those meaningful snaps in the fourth quarter and knowing that these plays are what's going to decide the game. So it was a really fun year for us.
Yeah, I remember that Nebraska game. You had a throw. I think it was probably a big moment to Erickson, where you kind of just you faked and then you just chucked like a 40-yard, probably about 40 yards, right on the money without even really like stepping into throw. That one, that was
Mhm.
a throw I always remember. That was a lot of fun. But those last two seasons, when as we mentioned before, is you overcame the adversity in your junior year, and then your senior year, where it wasn't the best of situations offensively. I thought fans were way, way, way too hard on you. Did that ever impact your confidence dealing with the fans? And how did you block it out? What were your strategies? And what kind of impact did that have on you at 22, 23 years old?
Honestly, I it didn't affect me a ton because um, I was really disconnected from the internet. So I didn't have a smartphone. I didn't have any social media. Um, I knew there was a lot of negative out there, and there's some guys who kind of eat off the negative and put a chip on their shoulder. I'm not that guy. Like, I didn't want to see it. I didn't really want to know what people are saying. I could get a feel for kind of the general tone out there from the questions I was getting asked in interviews and stuff like that. But by and large, I just did what I could to block it out and just avoid it entirely by not being really on the internet at all. So um, I know it was tough on my brother. He would, he'd wear one of my jerseys to every game, and he'd sit right in the front, and then he'd go out on Saturday nights, and people would talk smart to him, and he'd get in arguments. And but I knew he always had my back, so I appreciated that. But for all the negative commentary that you get online, I don't think once in my life did I have ever had somebody come up to me in person and be like, "Hey, you're the worst." Like, it doesn't really happen. So, um, so I was able to kind of just block it out and stay away from it. And, I had my guys in the locker room, and, they were not only teammates and had each other's back, but a lot of them were some of my best friends. So I guess it never really distracted me too much.
Okay. Well, and also you didn't say this, but you did not have a smartphone in college, and as I learned right before the show, you have an iPhone 7 right now. So you're an old soul. You're a relic. I respect that. I appreciate that. But yeah, no smartphone when he was in college, so he didn't see what people were saying on social media. Not that all of it was bad. There was a lot of people out there who also were defending you, like me. But there was it wasn't all bad. But yeah, that's what fans do, unfortunately. And the last question before we get into just your NFL journey, life after football, and let you get out of here, is just talk about the adversity in life. And we touched on this a little bit, but just the adversity at a young age in college. How do you think that just helped you grow up as a person?
Um, I think it kind of just reminds you of the perspective. Um, at a young age, it's easy to get really kind of wrapped up in, what you're doing at the time. Um, and there was positives, there was negatives, but I got to go back and be an honorary captain for a game last year, and pregame, just standing on the sidelines and kind of seeing the stadium fill up. You kind of, it brings you back and you think like, wow, this was a really really cool opportunity. And all the negative out there, sure, and you get beat up, and physically it's challenging and mentally it's challenging, but it's such a short period in your life. And I did that. I've been working at my job now for 7.5 years, and that's like 2.5 years longer than I was in college. And the time that you're in college, like, it just comes and goes so quick. And um, so I think just going through all the ups and downs that I did, and kind of riding that roller coaster helped me keep perspective now in my current life as I go through challenges at work and stuff like that. Just knowing that it'll pass, and nothing's really that big a deal, I guess.
So moving on to your NFL career a little bit. At the NFL Combine, touched on this earlier. 6'5", nearly 240 pounds. You jumped to 33.5 vertical with long arms. So let's keep that in mind. You have very long arms, and you jumped to 33.5 vertical. Ranked third among the 18 quarterbacks at your combine. Your broad jump was a very solid 9'7", ranked 6 out of the 18 quarterbacks at the combine. Ran a 4.8 40, 4.80 40-yard dash, which is the same time as Pat Mahomes, Dak Prescott. Daniel Jones was in that ballpark at the combine, and he's got the fastest miles per hour ever in NFL history with the ball in his hands, according to the data that tracks that. Faster 40 time than Baker Mayfield. Josh Allen's right in that ballpark. You kind of touched on this earlier, but why didn't you run the ball a little bit more often?
Um, I I don't think I had the greatest football speed. Um, Running the ball at the quarterback position is a lot of it's not as much your athleticism, and it's more your um doing it at the right time. And one of the things that was tough for me about playing at Wisconsin was the fact that we were such a run heavy offense. Um, because there'd be times where you always hear about quarterbacks talking about getting in a rhythm and feeling comfortable. And to get into a rhythm and feel comfortable, you got to like throw some balls and like see them completed. And when you run the ball 5 times and then all of a sudden you're in a 3rd and 8, and everybody in the stadium knows you're throwing the ball, puts the quarterback in a really tough spot. So just like running, when you tuck it and run, it's kind of like feeling the rhythm of the game and feeling the pocket. And there's something to be said about just when you're not dropping back nearly as much. um it's harder to kind of understand when you want to tuck it and run. So I don't know, it certainly wasn't a part of the offense. And when we were throwing, 20 times a game or so, half of them in play action and then third down situations. Um, just the opportunity I felt like didn't come up that often. Um, and I don't know when it did. I actually used to practice my sliding after the South Carolina game after I got whacked on my little scramble there. Um, so I anticipated junior and senior year maybe running a little bit more and using my newfound slide, but I don't know, it just never really happened.
Yeah, okay, and then yeah, just a few questions about your NFL journey. You played in the NFL from 2016 to 2018 with the Vikings, Seahawks, Chiefs, Redskins, Jets, and Browns. Which stop was your favorite?
The Chiefs. So I just really liked the guys there. I really liked Coach Reed. Um, so I was with the Vikings through week 6 and then got cut. Went directly to Seattle for a week because it was a week that Russell Wilson had injured his shoulder in the game before, so he wasn't going to throw it all in practice. So the backup took all the starter reps. They brought me in to run the scout team for a week, then got cut, and was actually really, really close to signing with Green Bay.
Oh
And at
wow.
that, I had gotten cut, you know, twice in 2 weeks. Um, I was paying for an apartment in Minnesota that I wasn't living in anymore, and I kind of thought, like, you know what? My mom's got a cousin right near who lives in Green Bay. I can just live in their basement, like, kind of right out the end of this year. It'll be fine. And so I had had some conversations with the Packers, and I was close to doing that. And then I got a call from Kansas City to just come in and do a workout. And so I was gonna go work out for Kansas City, then come back to Green Bay and sign with the Packers. And um, workout went really good, and they said they'd keep me for they basically said, we want you to stay here as a practice squad quarterback, and we will keep you for the whole year. And I thought, okay, I just got cut twice in the last 2 weeks, like, sold.
Yeah.
so um, so it was nice to kind of have just that job security of knowing that at least from now, so the first week in November through January, I I know I've got a place to kind of call home. So that was really nice. But on top of that, the quarterback room was outstanding. So Alex Smith was the starter, Nick Foles was the backup,
Oh
and
wow.
then
I didn't know Foles was there.
yeah, and Foles was both of them. They were awesome guys. And then Tyler Bray was their third guy. So they actually had four quarterbacks on the roster, and um, they were just they really kind of took me in. We would do quarterback dinners every Thursday night.
Oh, cool.
So it would be the four of us, and then their three wives and me. So seven of us, the seventh wheel. But it was just really fun. They took me in. They made me feel comfortable. Um, they kind of brought me along to their stuff, um, and then we had a really good team. And it was cool to see Alex Smith operate, see him lead. Um, he was a true professional. Um, And then the next year, I signed a futures contract with him and was with Kansas City through training camp when I got cut at the end of training camp. Um, so Alex Smith was still there. Foles had moved on to Philadelphia, and then they drafted Patrick Mahomes. So, I kind of knew my time there was going to be short lived, but it was really cool just being around those guys, and I liked Kansas City a lot. So there was a lot of things I really liked about my stop there.
Yeah, well, I have to ask you. You were teammates with Patrick Mahomes for a few months. Did you notice anything that made it clear to you that he was going to become a superstar?
Yeah, I did. It it was funny. So because I was on the practice squad the year before, I was able to do rookie mini camp again. Um, so him and I were the quarterbacks in rookie mini camp, and I kind of knew the offense. He didn't. And I remember thinking, like, yeah, this guy's maybe not that good. Like, and obviously it was just because he had just gotten there. He was learning, and kind of every day you could see him pick things up a little bit more. Um, and then going into training camp when he had a much better grasp on the offense, he really started to get comfortable. And every day in practice, he would make, three or four throws that, we all the other quarterbacks would kind of look at each other like, wow, that was, I don't know if I make that one. So he was, he was pretty special. And one of the things that was so cool about him was, um, like, you know, I was disappointed when I saw that they traded up to draft a guy 10 overall, um, as a quarterback on the team. But he was he was exactly the guy that you kind of see in the media now. He's just a great teammate. He's not about himself. He was really easy to be around. So, as disappointed as I was to see that they drafted a quarterback and kind of had that guy who was for sure going to get one of the quarterback spots. Um, Once I got to know him, I mean, he was an awesome guy. So that was it was cool to just get to know him, and now to see him have the success that he's had has been fun to watch.
Absolutely. And is there any story in particular, like any fun Patrick Mahomes stories that you remember?
Um, yeah, I he wasn't a great frisbee thrower, so we would during training camp we would play this game, with the two quarterbacks against the other two quarterbacks, and we would throw the ball at the crossbar, and you'd have to hit it from the 5, and then you'd switch, then you'd have to hit it from the 10, and then you'd switch, and then you'd have to hit it from the 15, and you'd switch, and whoever got done first won. And it was kind of like accuracy. It was kind of a conditioning game because there was a lot of run around chasing the ball after paying off the uprights. And um, but during training camp, when we were at Missouri Western and St. Joe's, we kind of switched up some of the materials that we would throw at the uprights. So we would throw frisbees and stuff like that. And him and I were usually pretty competitive against Alex Smith and Bray, um, but he didn't throw the frisbee real well, so that one always made it tough for us to win. I was humbly, I was a very good frisbee thrower. So
That's funny. That's funny. I can see that. People always give you the comparisons to Sunshine, and I imagine Sunshine was a good frisbee thrower.
I bet he was.
But yeah. So last NFL question is, you're reunited with Russell Wilson, Tanner McAvoy, Darrell Bevell in Seattle. For a week or two. It was a quick stop, but talk about what was that like reuniting with all those fellow Badger quarterbacks.
It was cool. It was nice to get to a place with some familiar faces. Um, Obviously, unfortunately, not for very long. But one of the things that was cool about Seattle was they traveled all their practice squad guys,
Okay.
and not all teams did that. So for that one week that I was there, we played at New Orleans. Um, so when you're flying from Seattle to New Orleans, that's not a flight you're going to do the day before the game. So we left on Friday and spent 2 nights in New Orleans and practiced once there. And it's just fun to see the way that different um, teams kind of prepare for games, what they do for their walkthroughs and stuff like that. But kind of getting to see Russell as he was in college, kind of just um, even more experienced, more of a leader, um, and seeing him doing that at the pro level, um, because I got to spend a full year around him in Wisconsin, and to kind of see him doing it at the pro level firsthand like that for a week was really cool. So it was unfortunate I didn't get to stay there a little bit longer, but that's kind of the nature of the game. At least for me, it was.
All right, so a few questions about your life after football, and then we'll get you out of here with a rapid fire round. So, what was the moment you were officially at peace with walking away from the game of football?
Um, So I would say when I kind of wrapped up my career with the Browns, um, So I was, as I mentioned, I was on the Chiefs when they drafted Mahomes. So going into training camp, it was Alex Smith, who was the clear day one starter. Mahomes, who was obviously the quarterback of the future and going to be the backup. Then you had Tyler Bray, who had been on the team for 5 years, had a great relationship with all the coaching staff, and in the grand scheme of things, is not costing them hardly any money. And then me. So I kind of knew I was the odd man out. And then I found myself in Cleveland. And at the time when I signed with Cleveland, they had Tyrod Taylor, who was going to be the day one starter. Um, and then they had Drew Stanton, who was kind of a longtime NFL backup. He was, buddies with all the coaches, their kids. I think it sounds like their kids were friends and they'd have like barbecues together. So, and then they draft Baker Mayfield one overall. And I kind of felt like I've been here before. Like I could hang around in training camp and get cut after camp and have another year of, bouncing from team to team. But the issue is if you're not on a team, you're not making any money, and I'm kind of just back in my parents' basement. So there's really not a whole lot of stability to it. Um, so at that time, I kind of knew, maybe it's time to move on. I could also feel myself. I knew whether I was going to have a 2 year NFL career or a 10 NFL career. I was going to have a career after football, and I could kind of feel myself falling behind in what that next career was going to be. I had friends from the engineering school who were working jobs and were, learning what being a professional is and, moving up in their jobs. And I was, bouncing around from practice squads, which was an awesome, awesome experience. But I could feel myself kind of falling behind in my next career. So I knew, after about a week, 2 weeks or so on the Browns going through OTAs with Baker Mayfield there also, and just knowing that like this quarterback room is kind of set. I kind of decided I'm gonna move on and do something else.
Okay, and then yeah, I'll say this one just kind of came to the top of my head, but do you think being a backup quarterback is the best gig out there if you get to like that number two spot?
It's a sweet gig. That was my hope was me and Mahomes. I thought had a good relationship for the OTAs and training camp that we spent together. We got along really well, and I would have loved to be Kansas City's backup quarterback and backup Mahomes for 5 years and um, kind of fall into that role. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. But
Yeah.
yeah, if you can get into that spot where you've got a little bit of job security, um, and you've got a good starting quarterback who you're able to help out in the meeting room, help out at practice, and be another kind of in a way like an extension of the coaching staff. That's a great spot, and then you're not getting smoked by those defensive linemen every weekend.
Yeah,
That was
yeah. Oh, go
honestly
ahead.
another thing. I didn't think of saying this, but when I was on the Browns, another kind of one of those maybe it's time to hang it up things was just seeing Miles Garrett and thinking this guy's job, and he's getting paid handsomely to do it, is to get the quarterback. And I don't really want to go out there and let that guy come after me because he was as physically impressive as anybody I've ever seen. So that was another one of those moments.
Okay. And one last question that just popped up in my head. What was it like throwing to Travis Kelce?
Travis Kelce was awesome. He, yeah, at that time, he kind of he had a different reputation because he had just done his like TV show on ETV of called Catching Kelsey.
Okay.
Um, but I'd only been on the team for a few weeks, and he was another guy who was just he just was nice. to me, and he didn't necessarily need to be. I was out at a Top Golf with I happened to have a friend who lived in Kansas City, so I went out to a Top Golf one afternoon with him and a bunch of his friends, um, and happened to run into Travis Kelce there. And he, you know, I felt comfortable enough to go over to him and be like, "Hey, Trav, what's up, man?" And he was, excited to see me, and like he didn't have to do that. He was, one of the best players on the team, one of the best tight ends in the NFL, and I was a practice squad quarterback who'd been on the team for 2 weeks. But the fact that I felt comfortable enough around him to go up and say, "Hey," kind of speaks to the kind of teammate and the guy that he is, the leader that he is, and he had an unbelievable knack for just getting open. Um, so I didn't throw to him a lot. I covered him sometimes in walkthroughs, and I'd even know the routes that he's running, and he'd still get open. So he just has a great feel for how to set guys up and use leverage and get you to flip your hips one way and go the other way. So he's impressive.
Wait, so you casually just dropped that in there? You're playing defensive back?
In walkthroughs.
So, explain that to me.
So when you're doing walkthroughs, like the way that the practice day was set up with the Chiefs was you'd come in, you'd have your meetings in the morning, then you'd go to walkthrough, then you'd have lunch, and then you'd go practice in the afternoon, um, afternoon meetings, and then dinner. And so when you do your walkthroughs, the defense was on one side of the field, the offense was on the other side of the field. So to give the offense a look, the practice squad offensive players would assemble a defense. So I would play, safety or corner or, whatever they needed me to on the, the look team for walkthroughs. So it was, shorts and t-shirts. We weren't going full speed, but, just kind of out there to be a body and show them where the safeties are going to be lining up and stuff like that.
Okay, understood. And then, yeah, so you finished playing in 2018, and I promise I'll get you out in just a few minutes. But you finished playing in 2018. Were you tempted at all to join the XFL when that popped up in 2020, or to play in any other leagues?
I was not. I had a couple of coaches from a German league reach out to me, um, and that would have been fun. But I, again, like I mentioned, mentally, I kind of knew I was ready to get to my next career, um, and start, seeing what the next 30 years of my life was going to look like, or at least kind of start exploring the different fields. Because as a civil engineer, I looked at a number of different companies, engineering companies, construction companies, development companies, stuff like that. Um, and I knew there was a lot out there that I thought I'd really enjoy once I got into that career. So as much as I love playing football, um, I kind of felt like it was it was time to do something else. And you know, if it wasn't such a physically demanding game, um, I would have been probably more likely to want to continue to do it. Like basketball, like you see guys play in Europe and play basketball until they're in their 30s. Um, but it's so physical, and you know you're you're getting knocked down, and there's huge guys hitting you, and it just that was part of the factoring decision also of like I just don't really feel like I want to get hit anymore.
Okay. And then the last question before our rapid fire round is, what's next for you? Anything new on the horizon for Joel Stave?
Um, I would imagine at some point here in the next few years I'll get into the youth sports coaching game.
Let's
So
go.
I've got I've got
That
three kids,
life.
two boys, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and then a 7-month-old daughter. So, my two boys really like sports, especially my oldest. He loves baseball. Um, he loves football. And then my middle son, he's really into basketball. So, Um, I could see myself getting into doing some coaching of youth sports here in the future. Um, and then I train a couple of local quarterbacks also. So that's a fun way to kind of stay involved with the game
Absolutely.
without the time commitment of, being an actual high school coach. Because that with three little kids and a full-time job, I don't have time to coach high school football either.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that's the best answer you possibly could answer to that question. Getting into the youth coaching scene. I love that. I love that. So, yeah, Joel Stave from walk-on to top 100 quarterback in the world, if you think about it, right? Roughly top 100 when you look at the NFL and the practice squad. There's probably about 100 quarterbacks, roughly, give or take. Top 100 quarterback in the world for 3 years. Not bad. Not a bad journey for you. But let's move on to a rapid fire round and finish up this interview. So I'll give you a bunch of questions. Just answer them in a timely fashion. So question number 1, who's influenced you most in your life?
My parents, mommy and dad.
All right. What's something about you that might surprise people?
I would say the piano, but we already talked about that.
Yeah, I covered a lot. I came prepared.
A lot of people don't know is that I love to play the piano and still play a lot today.
Was there anyone in the NFL where you kind of had a starstruck moment where it's like, whoa, this is cool to be on the same team as that guy?
Yeah, Adrian Peterson. You may not know this one. I grew up a Vikings fan because my dad is from North Dakota. So we were just always Vikings fans. So um, when I got to Minnesota and I met Adrian Peterson, and then actually after Teddy Bridgewater had his knee injury,
I remember that.
yeah, it was pretty jarring. Like, it was a gruesome injury. It happened right before the first game. Um, and everyone kind of quietly went in the locker room, and I sat down in my locker room, and Adrian Peterson walks up to me and he goes, "Hey, you better be ready to go." And he walks away, and I was like, that was maybe the coolest moment of my life. I had a poster of this guy on the wall growing up, and like he told me I got to be ready to play quarterback for him. It's like, whew, that was really something.
You hate to see someone get injured, and Teddy Bridgewater, from what I've seen, seems like a really, really cool guy. But I wasn't happy about him getting hurt. But I remember when he got hurt, and I was like, I think Joel Stave might be the quarterback of the Vikings. Let's go! This is awesome. So I do remember that moment.
And then they traded for Sam Bradford, and he
Yeah.
had an awesome year actually. So that was that. But yeah, Teddy Bridgewater was a really cool guy to be around.
Yeah. Who's the best leader you played with in your career?
I would say Alex Smith. I just got the chance to be around him for a really long time, and at that time he had been in the league for probably 10 years, and was just really well respected. He knew his game really well. He was never viewed as the most talented quarterback out there, but he knew the offense inside and out, and guys really respected him and really looked up to him.
Who's your favorite all-time football player?
If you asked me when I was a kid, it would have been Adrian Peterson, so I'll probably stick with that answer.
Who's your favorite to watch these days?
I really like watching Patrick Mahomes. I really like watching Joe Burrow when he's healthy.
Are you a Flacco guy?
No,
you're not a Flacco guy?
No.
Oh, just a thought.
I mean, I don't dislike him, but
yeah, you're indifferent towards Flacco.
Yeah.
Sure, that's fair. Sorry to cut you off there.
And I don't know. I mean, Aaron Rodgers in his prime, like when I was in college, Aaron Rodgers was incredible. Some of the throws that he would make. So he was really fun to watch too.
Yeah, I just didn't know because I'm a big Flacco guy. I'm a Stave guy, Flacco guy. I'm a fan of tall quarterbacks. That's what it is. And I'm a big Daniel Jones guy. So
yeah, I love to see what Daniel Jones is doing right now.
Bro, I've been hitting that drum for years. I've been telling people, you give Daniel Jones the right situation, he is a really good quarterback. I've been saying that, and finally, A lot of people are giving me my props now, but I have been saying that for a long time.
Well, and I was talking about this with my brother the other day, that it's unfair the way that quarterbacks are judged purely based off of their performance. Where I feel like if you put any decent quarterback on a team with Kevin O'Connell, the guy's going to be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL in the next 2 years. You know, and like look at Sam Darnold. He was not good in New York. Well, you could put anyone in New York and they're not going to be good, but then you put him with O'Connell and he has an outstanding year. So it's so easy to just purely look at the quarterback performance and be like, oh, this guy's good, this guy's not good. But
There's more to
it's
it.
it's so dependent on the situation around them.
Better pure athlete, Joel Stave or Tyler Hero?
Oh, Tyler Hero.
Pure athleticism? I don't know. I don't know if he's running a 4.840. I don't know if he's running a 4.8. You combine speed, just not skill, with his basketball. Mm-hmm. But you go speed, strength. Like you ran a 4.840 at 6'5", 240 pounds. I know you're lifting a lot more weights than he can. You're benching more. You're squatting more. You're deadlifting more, right? And then what? Do you know what your wingspan is?
I don't. I think it's probably.
Is it relative?
It's about my height, so
okay.
6'5". It's probably about 6'6" or so.
Okay, I thought it might be a little bit longer. I was gonna say that maybe you could. Hero's got a short wingspan relative to his height. I guess like an inch shorter. So say he's 6'4", he's got like a 6'3" wingspan. I was saying that perhaps you might be able to get up higher. Like if you guys in your primes were to touch as high as you could on the backboard, I don't think it'd be that far away. And I don't know if he could run a 4.840. So that's what I was saying. Not to come at you and make you defend Tyler Hero being more athletic than you, but that's what I thought about before.
So what I would say for my athletic ability is I'm very hand-eye coordinated. That's where my real strength lies. I feel like I can play every sport pretty well. Like I haven't played a whole lot of tennis in my life, but I think if I were to practice tennis for a while, I could be a pretty good tennis player. Yeah. And I'm a pretty good ping pong player and stuff like that. So I think that's where my real athletic strength lies, is in my hand-eye.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, maybe I'm pushing it a little bit with that one, and people are gonna think I'm insane. People might think I might lose a little credibility after that one, but I just thought that one through.
I appreciate it though.
I'm not a Tyler Hero guy, so yeah. So, what was the last year you received a call from a pro football team? 2018 was your last year playing.
It would have been 2018. I got. Okay. So when I everything kind of runs through your agent, so they'll call your agent. So he reached out to me a few times and just said, you know, like, hey, there's teams that are showing some interest, and I kind of told him, like, I don't want to be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Like, when I'm ready to go, I'm gonna do it. So I think he respected that.
Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Favorite NFL teammate?
David Morgan. David Morgan with the Vikings. Okay. He was a 6th round draft pick out of UTEP, same year as I was. And we just really hit it off. We clicked, and for the 6 weeks that I was there, we spent a lot of time together. A real good friend. Let's go.
Most impressive arm talent that you played with ever?
The time I spent with Patrick Mahomes.
Okay. Favorite college teammate?
I had 3 guys who I lived with. Sam Arneson, Jay Kiefer, and Eric Steffes, all Wisconsin guys. So Sam and Steffes were tight ends, and then Jay Kiefer was a defensive lineman. So those guys they stood up in my wedding. They're my best friends. So, you know, they were teammates, but they're friends first.
Okay, and then the last few, Favre or Rodgers?
I'd have to say, from like just an ability standpoint, I would say Rodgers.
Okay. Favorite food?
Cheeseburger.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Favorite animal?
I like a bald eagle. Bald eagles are cool.
And then, last question, what's your favorite workout?
I got a lot of different ways I like to work out. I love riding my bike. I got a decent road bike a couple of years ago. So a good early morning, Saturday morning bike ride. I really like, but I like doing yoga. I like swimming in the winter. I'll go to the Y and swim. And then I'll just do kind of lightweight and body weight stuff in the basement. So I do a lot of different stuff to kind of keep myself mobile. I'm never going to be real strong again, but as long as I can move.
Yeah, well, they didn't call you Sunshine for nothing. You're doing yoga.
That's right.
Just like the movie, man. But yeah, man, thank you so much for your time. I sincerely appreciate it. This was an awesome interview. Covered a lot of different, a lot of ground here. But yeah, thank you very much for your time, Joel. And yeah, best of luck moving forward.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. It was fun.